Welcome to 123 Sync for Act and Outlook Exchange. This section will deal with how to synchronize multiple users with calendars. There's quite a few challenges dealing with multiple users. The easiest challenge is to sync one Act user to Act contacts. These functions work the same way as dealing a single user. So if you want to know more about this, please go to part 1 that deals with single user synchronization. But what we do within 123 Sync, we can sync individual users to contacts in Exchange and the calendars. So taken from there, one of the biggest challenges we have is when you have on a multi-user sync environment where you have Tom, for example, on this slide that will sync. You have the same meeting being scheduled across 3 different platforms, as well as with the same subject line. And at the same time, you have internal people in the company who are scheduling or adding that meeting to their list of meetings to attend. So what 123 Sync does, it actually manages these interactions of this particular meeting, which is urgent sales at 11, and it manages these requests and puts them all together into one meeting. And what happens when users actually abstain themselves from the meetings, and they do that by deleting the meeting from their calendar. So how does 123 Sync deal with all that, and how does that 123 Sync portray that into the different activities in Exchange? So for each user in 123 Sync, it has individual settings of calendars and folders that exist in Exchange. We support multi-user scheduling for single and recurring events, and we'll go through the demo when we show that. And we have full support of the prevention of the generation of the body text. The reason is if you have multiple users that are scheduled within the same calendaring events, you don't want the generation of the body text because of security concerns. So we prevent that from happening. And of course, we have 0 duplicates. From what we've seen, we don't create duplicates when we do these complex synchronizations. All the calendars are all synced from a single location, so you don't have to go to all different PCs to sync calendars. So before you do any type of multi-user synchronization, you need to set up the users and allow them to synchronize. And you do that by managing grant access to each user that's going to be involved in the multi-user. What you want to do is allow any users that are going to be scheduled within their own database to have view and schedule capabilities on their access. So you click on access, click on view and schedule. So when we log in, we can actually set the scheduling or modifications that other users put into any schedule that are created. By doing that, you enable then multi-user scheduling and synchronization within from Act over to Exchange. If you don't do that, 123 Sync, we will encounter a permissions issue where we cannot modify items that should be modified, and the sync will not work properly. Let's get back to Outlook now and see what we have. We have 3 folders. One is Tom1, Tom2, Tom3, which are folders that are dedicated to our 3 users. Each one has a calendar, Tom2 and Tom3. And the calendars, we're going to start with the empty calendars. So what we're going to try to do is map these calendar items over to our Act setup. So let's just go to 123 Sync, go to Tom2, then we'll select the Tom2 calendar, contacts first, and then the calendar. Just check mark that. Then go to Tom3, click contacts, click calendar. So now we have 3 users that have been set up with their respective Outlook calendar and contact folders. So now let's just exit the 123 sync interface. We don't need that anymore. So now we just go to 123 sync and basically double click on it and sync all the data from the 2 calendars to everybody. One thing you should always look for is if you see any errors on the first sync from 123 sync, and just check that out and then report the error or take appropriate actions to fix the error. So let's now see how this all works. Let's look at Outlook. We have the 3 contact folders, the 3 calendar folders, and I've cleared them all of any items. While in Act we have the same thing. So what I'm going to do is just create an activity and just schedule with more contacts with all the users, a multi-user activity with Tom, Tom2, and Tom3. So just go multi-user, just call it 4 ones, and now it's scheduled. And what we could do is just run the 123 sync, and that will take activities and then put them on the correct folders. So let's close the window and see what we get on the Act side. So we go to first calendar. We'll see Tom with everybody scheduled, and you can see, let me reduce to this. You can see at the bottom here that is actually linked to all the contacts that are the users in Act. So, and then we can just go down to calendar 2 for Tom 2. So click here, and you can see there that it's been scheduled and everything there. And the same thing for user number 3. There we go, it's linked to the contacts, and then we have it. So now what we want to do just on user number 2, let's just modify it and just say, okay, instead of number ones, let's call it number 2s, and we want to add details to the activity. So this is activity details, body text. Just go here. So what we've done now is modify the calendar item, the single calendar item in Outlook, and see how it syncs back into Act. And we also added the activity details. So we double click, it runs. So now what's done is put it back into Act. So if you run it again, now it's actually going to propagate to all the users that are part of the activity. So you would need 2 syncs in order for these modifications to go through to all the users. So now let's just go back to Act and see what we get. Here we go, F5. Oh, now we can see there's an icon for the details. So now the details have been put back into Act, the activity details, as well as the modification that we made on user 2. So let's go into Outlook, and because we're doing some syncs, let's just restart Outlook. On an Exchange server, this wouldn't be pertinent, but when you're having Outlook as your main transport, yeah, you probably need to restart it. I would suggest restarting it after sync. So let's go to calendar in Outlook. Just click on the item. Here we have, and then now the details is right there. So what we've done is propagate the details from one user to all the other users within the same appointment, as well as the modifications. So now we have 3 users that are being scheduled, and these 3 users have a calendar item that they have to meet. So we can actually see if we want to go, okay, if Tom 1, or let's just go to Tom 2, and Tom 2 doesn't want to be there, he'll remove the calendar item. So what you really want to do when somebody like that removes it from his item, you don't want to remove it from the other contact folders. You want it to update the people that are actually active in the calendar. So let's just sync and see what happens. So let's go back into Act and then just go F5, and then we go here. Now we can see that we only have Tom and Tom 3. So the Tom 2 has been removed from the calendar item, but the calendar item still exists in the, as far as the meeting go. So what we're doing is we're not removing the whole item or doing modification. We're just removing that user from actually participating on the meeting, which is if you have a cell phone, you just remove your calendar. You're not going to be there. Just remove it from your calendar, and then that user gets taken off the meeting itself. So now let's go back to Act, and in Act, this is the meeting. It's at 10 o'clock. Okay, the meeting has been scheduled for 12. So you can just move to 12 and then sync. And if we go into Outlook, instead of being 10, if you go to the calendar, it's going to be at 12. So what we've done now basically is any modifications in time or when the meeting is, it actually reflects in Outlook. So now within Outlook, we could say, well, the meeting is not on Monday. So the meeting actually has been moved from Monday to Wednesday at 11:30. So we do that. We go, and what we can see here is that on Tom 3, which is part of the meeting is still at noon. So we just go into sync and do the sync twice. So now it's syncing back to Act. Sync it again. Now that it's syncing from Act over to Outlook and making all the modifications that we need. So you're looking at least 2 syncs. And then we're just going to Tom 3 and see what happens. And there it is. So now you've modified on Tom 1, and Tom 3 is affected as well. And of course, the meeting in Act has been moved as well. So this whole coordination of meetings is now being managed by 123 Sync. So of course, if you're going to Act and you go and erase the meeting and just say, okay, you want to delete this activity, say just delete this activity. When you run the 123 Sync, the activity now should be deleted from all the users that you're actually synchronizing. So let's just have a look on that. Click on here, and it looks at the calendar. There's nothing there, nothing here, nothing there. So deleting from the Act, which will be where all the pieces are together, it will delete from the multiple Outlook folders in Outlook. So now let's look how we deal with recurring events of multiple users. Let's create a meeting, a daily meeting with all the contacts. Select the contacts, okay, all the users, and then just put a recurrence of daily into infinity. Oh, I need to edit the subject. Recurring event for all. Okay, let's click here, edit all occurrences. So what we have is a meeting that goes into infinity. So let's just go into 123 Sync, double click on 123 Sync, and it will run the sync for us. So what it's doing now, it's putting the recurring events into into the different contacts. So we'll go here and just look at the different users. Just close this. Go to calendar here. So everybody, Tom 1 through 3, has the meeting. So now let's just go to Tom 3 and just delete a particular occurrence and see what. Let's just delete Tuesdays and Thursdays of this occurrence. And on recurring events, if you delete an individual instance, you delete it for everybody. So let's go and sync that. And what we're doing now is syncing the recurrence exceptions from Outlook over to Act. So click here, click F5, and now we have the recurring exceptions. By syncing again, now we're propagating the modifications to all the users. So we go into these my Tom1 users, and now you have the recurring exceptions on Tom1 as well as on Tom3. So now we have in Act and Outlook, we have a basic mechanism to synchronize individual meetings and activities. So another piece that we support in Outlook is if you go into a particular meeting and then you want to just open this occurrence, and you can just say, oh, changed and had fun. So what you're doing is create an individual occurrence of this meeting. So if you click here, open this occurrence, change and had fun. So let's see how that maps into the synchronization. Let's just double click on the sync, and what we do, we actually bring it over to Act, create the Act equivalent of it, and then we take that and then propagate it to all the users. So click here, let's do another one. And there we go, we're done. So now let's look at Outlook, and we can see in Outlook that the activity, now it's an individual activity for Outlook. And as well, let's just look at Tom3, it's an individual activity, while we still have the series going on here, which it matches exactly what's happening in Act. So in Act, this is an individual activity with the same subject, as well as this is the series of the recurrence activity series. So what we're doing, we not only we do deletions, but as well we do modifications and synchronize the modifications between the different users and Act and the Act recurring activity. So just to finalize, let's move to the next week, and let's just take and move the activity that is at from 10 o'clock, let's move that to 8 o'clock, and let's move all occurrences to 8 o'clock. So what we have now, it's an 8 o'clock recurring activity that has 10 o'clock in Outlook. So what we want to do, if we sync, these activities should move in Outlook. Basically, it will match the recurring activity changes that we do in Act. So let's close that. Let's go back into Outlook, and here we have 8 o'clock. So what we've seen is a full integration of recurring activity mechanisms between Act and Outlook and Act. Or in this case, and in all cases, it would be Outlook or Exchange. This concludes our presentation on how to synchronize a multi-user Act database with a multi-user folders in Outlook or Exchange, where you can actually synchronize singular or individual activities as well as recurring activities one way and two way. Thank you for taking your time to watch us, and please contact us if you have any questions.